Good morning. It's Friday, and I thought I'd do a little bit different this week. I'm not really doing a weekly catch up as such because, in effect, not a lot happened this week. I went out with the girls from Sheridan on Sunday, so we went out Sunday night. Went to a restaurant in Perth, um, which was really quite expensive. It was about, I think it cost the four of us close on $500. And to be honest with you, I don't think the food was that great. I mean, I have eaten at this restaurant before and the food's been good, but this week it wasn't. Um, and I remember at the end we wanted to order an extra round of drinks and we weren't allowed to because apparently the table had been booked, although the restaurant itself was pretty empty. So I will not be going back there. Lesson learned. And I don't know what everyone else thought about it, but I thought it was overpriced, and it wasn't the greatest experience in the world. Had a good night though, so we had a few drinks after, and it was fine despite the weather because it's raining. So there you go. Um, I kind of booked my holiday this week for middle of October, and we are going to hopefully go to Taiwan. Now, we've been doing a little bit of investigating. So I've mentioned this before, so we've been trying to find out various costs, etc., etc. And I mean, once you're there, it's fine. Hotels could be quite expensive. The flights are not too bad. I mean, I think they're about just over about 1,200 each. That's not too bad price wise. But we're not too sure whereabouts we're going to go because it's a 15-hour flight, and as far as I'm concerned, I need to have like a break halfway. I don't really want to be flying 15 hours because then you're just totally knackered for the rest of the holiday. So various options, whether it be Bangkok again, and we could possibly go to Singapore, but I've heard that is extremely expensive, or possibly Cathay Pacific to Hong Kong. So, we could do that. Or maybe I've been thinking about going to Cambodia for a few days and then, because I know the other half hasn't seen that, and I loved Cambodia, really did. But I think that might be, just as precarious as going straight through to Taiwan. I'm not sure. So we just got to work out what we're going to do. It's quite bizarre because, I was watching the news this morning, as I do every morning from the UK, and it really does depress me. I really don't know why I'm watching it, really. But they keep on talking about, a Third World War and all the rest of it. And they had a guy on Sky News this morning reviewing the newspapers, and he was particularly downbeat. And I just thought, oh my lord. In the past, especially as a child, I used to be really scared about world wars, end of the world, especially nuclear war and stuff like that. In fact, I remember 1981 when the Falklands War started, and I remember I'm sat in the lounge at home, and my parents were there, and they were talking about the war. And as a child, you kind of listen in, and and it was the end of the world for me. It was a war, and we were all going to die. And I think really a lot of my anxieties that I suffer with today stem from that period. And I suppose at that time as well, there was a lot of talk about nuclear war. I mean, we were in the midst of another Cold War. We are certainly in a new one now. And I remember we got leaflets to the door about what to do in the event of nuclear war and stuff like that. It was actually, I suppose, it was a really scary time, and a bit like today. And today is scary, which goes on to my point about why I'm going to Taiwan. I don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future, and there's so much talk about, China invading Taiwan and all the rest of it, and I really want to see that country because it's supposed to be beautiful. So it's purely selfish reasons. I definitely need to see that country because I have a fear that the world is going to get pretty bad over the next sort of 12 months. And that does make me sad. It really does. Especially, as a traveller, as someone who enjoys travelling a lot, living in a time of conflict is quite, I don't know, it is scary. Um, I mean, what do you do? Do you give up on life? I mean, these days, the anxieties I suffered with as a child don't really exist in the same way. I have other anxieties I deal with, but the anxieties to do with, World War, etc., I don't have those anxieties anymore. And it's mainly because I realised over time that there's nothing I can do about it. So the worries I have today, which are mainly centred around my health, are all things I can do something about and I can solve. But world conflict, I can't do anything about. You know, the people in charge, the awful, awful leaders that we have in the world, those are the ones responsible. And ultimately, these are the people who will, destroy the world or not. Whatever I do isn't going to change that. When I look at the people who run the world these days, possibly Trump coming up, which would be an absolute nightmare. I mean, God, America, please don't vote that man in again, whatever you do. But then I look at Biden. I mean, he's literally just as bad in a very different way. He's got empathy in a way Trump hasn't, but I'm not sure he's completely up to the job of being president of the United States. I don't know. And as for Eastern Europe and Russia, etc., I mean, it beggars belief what's going on there, and especially as a gay man going backwards, especially at that part of the world, is another anxiety that I have. So, for example, travelling these days for me is a more of a measured activity. I have to be very careful about where I'm travelling to. I think I've said before that, me and the other half have travelled to Malaysia. We've been there twice, but we travelled there at, a very different time. The laws now in Malaysia would prohibit us from, travelling there and staying there. I mean, you can't even have a pride flag or any rainbow emblem at all. It's ridiculous. But this is the way the world's gone, and it does scare me. Travelling for me is important, and it is. I almost feel. Some people were saying this to me the other day. Actually, I almost feel like I'm trying to fit everything in before the inevitable happens, and that is quite a. I don't know. That's quite a sad thought, really. And maybe I am trying to do that. I just don't know. But it's important for me to keep travelling, to keep seeing these places, to create memories, because the most important thing for me is indeed creating memories. And wherever I am in the world, it's I need to have that access to recollections of happier times. I think I am happy. I'm certainly happy here in a way I wasn't in the UK. I do miss the people in the UK. Oodles. I really miss them. I really miss friends and family. And I think lately I've been feeling it more than ever. And I do miss the expat community in Spain. And that's been sort of, on my mind a lot as well. I obviously get a lot of things popping up in social media about what I did X number of years ago, and they were happy times. And thankfully, I'm really lucky to still hear from a lot of those people, and they were sort of the family I didn't have there. And although we've got mum or my mum-in-law here and a couple of other people, but we don't really have that contact with lots of people that we had back home or in Spain. And I think that's probably got a lot to do with the social aspects of life in both Spain and the UK. As people, they're more welcoming and open, and yeah, it's a different. It's just a different way of life. Australians, I mean, I'm lucky because the Australians I know or I've met have been wonderful people. But as a rule, the one thing I've discovered is they're quite closed off. They're very private people. I mean, when you look at what's that show, the soap opera Neighbours, that kind of life doesn't really exist. Certainly not here where I am. It might do somewhere else in Australia. I don't know, but it's an aspect of life in Australia I'm finding hard, and you know people. I mean, like the girls I went out with from Sheridan, they are lovely girls, and it was something. I'm glad I did that, and I want to do it regularly. They are absolutely wonderful people. It was great working with them. You often don't realise how good or good for you other people are until they're no longer there or you no longer work with them. So actually seeing them outside of work was very cathartic. It was nice. It was something nice, and there's not a lot of nice things going on in the world generally at the moment, really. And I was watching the 80th anniversary of D-Day today, which was quite telling, really, and it was quite relevant to the times we're actually living through. And to see those late 90s 100-year-old veterans remembering their fallen comrades was quite pulled at the heartstrings a lot. Thinking of my own grandfather, my grandfather from my mother's side, who fought in Italy during the Second World War, and my other grandfather, my father's side, who was on the Arctic convoys, which that's a great source of contention because they weren't given medals in the same way other comrades were. I think the government have recently started to issue a medal, but that's only to the ones surviving. And obviously my grandfather died many years ago. So anyway, a little bit sobering this week, but we are going to look forward to a trip to Taiwan in October, and I am going to start planning it now. I mean, people keep saying to me, be careful, so anything can happen, and you don't really want to be planning trips to that part of the world at the moment, but I need to, and planning holidays or vacations or excursions, whatever you call it, is a big thing for me, and it gives me something to look forward to and work towards. So that's what I'm going to be doing. So wherever you are, have a good week. Always good to talk to you. Ciao for now.